I know, guys. I owe you guys a update here on the Convergence 2012, and I will do that in a minute. I just want to thank the readers of the book and also the folks who are listening to this. You guys are really giving me a lot of a source of happiness. To be honest with you, I wrote this book, and I realized, fuck, it's been 5 years already. I wrote this book, and I did everything in my power to market it at the time. And it was a real tough pill to swallow because even friends and family, I think there was only probably about five of my friends and family who actually took the time to fucking read it. So to them, it's very special. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. All right, so we last left off. Let's see. We got to chapter 22. So let's see here. Let's go 22. Let's see, 23, 24, 25. All right, let's try to get to 26. We'll try to get 4 chapters in here. How's that sound, guys? All right. I just woke up not too long ago. Got a little frog in my throat. Dude, that sounded gross, I'm sure. But anyway, here we go. Chapter 22, Revelations. December 20th, 2011, New York, 1:20 a.m. Richard sat in the bed, staring at Christie. The moonlight illuminated the curves of her back, and she sighed. She was coming. She was be. This is the right fucking yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. She was becoming a bore to him, and he was torn. Should he just leave her or kill her? She knew a lot of information, and he didn't want any of it to become public knowledge. He wondered if she was worth life, or if she was just another human plaything to be discarded when he was done with her. He decided to have some fun. Wake up. Come on, baby. 3 is enough. I can't handle it anymore. I'm getting sore. No, not that. I want to ask you something. She rolled over and stared into his eyes. She was no stranger to rich, powerful men, and something in her told her his tone was serious. She wasn't about to be on the receiving end of a half-assed attempt to leave the relationship. She laughed at herself for even thinking the word relationship. No, they were bed buddies. She knew that. She knew he was married and he could never end up being with a woman like her. She decided to take matters into her own hand and try to keep what little pride she had left. Yeah, I've been meaning to talk with you too. So maybe this heart-to-heart you want to share with me will work for both of us. He was interested in what she was getting at. Really? You had something to tell me? She nodded and rolled over. Her voluptuous breast caught the light, and the cool air made her nipples erect. I was thinking this was fun and all that, but I need to break away from you. The sex is phenomenal, but I need more, and you can't provide that. Go on. So after tonight, I don't think we should see each other anymore. Fascinating. He traced his finger along her stomach, and was smiling. She had somehow sensed he was going to give her bad news of some sort and wanted to be the first to act. He liked that. It showed she had instinct and brains, something that many humans seemed to lack. Why is that interesting? He sat up and held her legs. Well, I was going to tell you what a monster I am and see if you could keep a secret. But if you're sincere in this, and this is what you want, I won't stop you. She smiled. Monster? He grinned a big grin. Yes, a wicked, evil monster. And what if I couldn't keep the secret? Well, that would be very bad. She detected a tone in his voice and something in her screamed, "Get the fuck out." Well, I think I'll pass on a secret then, and just keep things nice between us. She rubbed his chest and postured that she was relaxed. He could smell the fear on her and it excited him. Well, how about one last romp in the hay for old time's sake? No, that would be bad for both of us. How so? Well, it would just make me want you more, and also make you want me more. And since we're trying to make a nice clean break, let's just do that. She went to slide out of the bed, and he shook his head. I'm sorry, but I think it's time we talked about my monster inside. Her heart started racing. No, let's not, seriously. I just want to take a shower and dress up. Would that be okay? Richard reached out his hand and placed it around her fragile neck. He was getting very excited now, and she could see it through the sheets. She realized she was in a very precarious position. She would have to figure a way out of a situation or she knew her life was going to end. She went to jump out of the bed, but she was moving in slow motion for him. He tightened his grip, slammed her back against the wall. The air escaped from her and her eyes widened. She realized he was going to kill her. Christy, I gotta tell you, I've really enjoyed our time together. And you've been a blast. I'm really gonna miss you. You knew how to get me off so well. She punched hard and connected with his face, and it seemed to have no effect. She tried kicking with all her might, and the kick landed on his chest. Again, it seemed to have no effect, other than exciting him more. Yes, fight it. Fight for your life. She went to scream, and he slammed her again. She went limp in his hands, and he cursed. He hoped he hadn't accidentally broken her neck. He felt her pulse and could hear her breathing. His phone rang and he debated killing her while she was unconscious. Where's the fun in that? He answered the phone. Yes? You wanted the results as soon as we had them. Yes, what do you have? The blood belongs to a Tim Christensen located in San Francisco, California. We found the guard, or at least what was left of him, in the shaft as you suspected. Our team went to get the subject and he wasn't at his last known address. What we found out also is the woman Joy Tsai. She was a name on the apartment on the phone and location. The last anyone saw of them was weeks ago. They were described as junkies. A junkie could not do what was done, unless he was very, very lucky. He turned away from Christy to continue his conversation. She was coming to, realized where she was, and saw Richard on the phone. Christy kept a small knife in her purse, which happened to be on a nightstand near her. She could see the blade in it. She reached over slowly and managed to get it. Richard could hear her breathing change and knew she was awake. He would deal with her after he was finished with his call. Anything else? He asked. No, sir. Well, I'll have to get back to what I was doing. I'll check in with you in the morning. He hung up the phone and Christy knew her time had come. She struck out with the blade and she punctured deep on the left side of his chest. He allowed the blade to penetrate and then he shoved her back. Wow, that actually kind of hurts. I like where you stabbed me. Under normal circumstances, that would have actually been a death strike. But as you see, we draconians have a slightly different anatomy than you humans. What? Was all she could manage to say. Richard reached out, grabbed her again by the neck. Here's the secret. He shifted, and her eyes widened as he did. He studied her. When he was done, he towered over her. His jaw was open inside were rows of teeth. Chrissy tried one last time to shove him away, and he just shook his head. I'm in the mood now. You penetrated me. He glanced down at the blade, which was still sticking out of him. My turn. He pushed her down, and his massive form enveloped her. The pain she suffered was unimaginable, and he completely used her up. When he climaxed, she had long since been dead. He slowly walked into the bathroom. He pulled the blade free and dropped it into the sink. He glanced back at the bloody mess lying on the bed. He shifted back to his human form and turned the shower on. Within a minute, he was all in the shower cleaning up. By the time he was done, the cut had almost completely healed up. He walked back to the bed, grabbed a comforter and the sheets, rolled her body up in it. He placed a roll on the floor and dialed a number on his phone. Hello? Yeah, it's me. I need a cleanup. I will text you the address. Make sure it's thorough. Okay, on my way. He hung up the phone and texted Christie's address. He knew within 10 minutes the crew would arrive. He dressed up, popped in a couple of sticks of gum. He was always discreet when he met with Christie, and she had been more than accommodating in keeping their arrangements private. He waited, and soon he heard a gentle knock at the door. He opened it. 2 men stood before him. He motioned at the roll on the ground. There's the body. Make it disappear. Also, I'd like the room to be searched, and if you find anything, let me know. Clean it all up. I'm heading out. You know what to do. The men nodded. It wasn't their first cleanup job, so they knew what they were doing. Richard gathered his belongings and whistled as he walked out the apartment. Chapter 23, Honeymoon, December 23rd, 2011, Vegas, 3:30 a.m. Tim and Joy had been enjoying relearning each other in the privacy of the suite. With ᶠᶸᶜᵏ gone, Tim felt more in control. With Joy by his side, he felt alive. His near-death experience made him appreciate the little things in many ways. It was noticeable to Joy, who was constantly amazed when Tim would point out things like flowers and the sunset, things he had never seemed to pay attention to before. She knew his run-in with the Drake had severely affected him. They spent the time exploring each other, and it felt fresh and new again. Tim made love to her, and sex had become very passionate and deeply emotional between them. They had been together for years, and Joy realized they had never maintained eye contact. Now, as husband and wife, the love-making was like nothing she had ever experienced. It was a beautiful thing as they shared and focused on pleasing each other. The pillow talk had also elevated to new levels as they were talking about deeper topics than television and the best drugs to score. Substance had crept into their relationship, and it was good. They talked all night long and slept in late. When they would wake up, they were ravenous, would eat large, and retire back to the bedroom. Tim had discovered the jacuzzi tub and was relaxing with Joy sitting next to him. "So you know Christmas is coming up." Tim nodded. He despised Christmas. It was a hard time for him, and he wondered why Joy was suddenly bringing it up. "I know you don't like it. I know why. But I think since things are going well, maybe we should make a clean break of everything if we can, and try to start over totally clean. This time, last year, I don't even really remember what we were doing." Tim did. He was robbing a couple for their money, and the husband had tried to fight back, and Tim had shot him dead, with a bullet to the face. "Yeah, I don't really want to talk about this. Christmas is bullshit anyway. I mean, why the hell? Why wait till one fucking day to let people around you know you love them and care about them?" "Tim, babe, come on. Don't be so negative. I was just saying maybe we should get something for your sister. You know, bury the hatchet." Tim was turning red. He could feel the anger rising in him. "What? Fuck her. I don't want to talk to her again." He was jonesing for a fix, and it scared him. He hadn't really wanted anything since ᶠᶸᶜᵏ had cleansed him. "I was just saying, at least you still have some family left." He started to get out of the jacuzzi, and as he jumped out, he started to slip. He saw the floor rising up to bash him in the face, and suddenly he froze midair, a few inches from the ground. He heard a gasp and turned his head to see Joy had her hand raised towards him. Her ring was glowing a dull blue. The anger left him. He just stared at her. "How the hell are you doing that?" She shook her head. "I have no idea. I saw you falling and reached out to catch you. The next thing I see is you floating." She calmed down and envisioned him on the ground softly. He floated the last couple of inches, and he quickly stood up. Tim looked at her ring, which stopped glowing, and he saw a black strip snake quickly out of sight. It reminded him of the barb in his foot. Son of a bitch. Joy carefully got out of the jacuzzi and got them both towels. "What?" "ᶠᶸᶜᵏ. What?" "He did something to our rings, or at least yours." They quickly changed into dry clothes and sat on the living room couch. "Okay, so how do you think this works?" asked Joy. "Got me. You did it, not me." "Let's experiment." Tim could hear the excitement in Joy's voice. Tim saw a pizza box on the counter, and he pointed at it. "Pizza come!" he said as he pointed. Joy waited. When nothing happened, she pointed and closed her eyes. She pictured in her mind the pizza box floating in front of her. She heard Tim grumble. She opened her eyes. The pizza box was floating in front of her. "Oh man, what am I, fucking retard? How the fuck are you doing it?" "I just closed my eyes, pictured the box moving to me. I imagined it." Tim's eyes widened. "Oh." He closed his eyes. He thought about the pizza box, imagined it back on the counter. He opened one eye and could see the box skittering across the floor. It slammed into the base of the counter. "Fuck. Hey, you moved it at least." He nodded and smiled. It was something. He would have to practice. Joy was smart. He knew. And he was fine with her being better at using the ring. "I wonder why ᶠᶸᶜᵏ put the mojo on the rings," Tim wondered aloud. Joy shrugged. "Who cares? Now you got some fun stuff to play with. Imagine what we could do at the crap tables." Tim nodded and thought about it. "We'd better not. I mean, we have a shitload of money as is, and pretty much anything we want here. Plus, ᶠᶸᶜᵏ probably shit a kitten if he found out." Joy nodded. She was proud of Tim. He had come a long way, and to hear him taking the moral high ground was weird, but Joy liked it. She hugged him, and she felt guilty about bringing up his sister. "About earlier, forget it. I know how you feel about family. It's cool. Thanks, by the way. I would have bashed my face in if you hadn't figured the whole ring thing." She squeezed him. "That's what I'm here for. I got your back. Literally." He smiled. She kissed him. "I'm tired," Tim said. "I'm not. Go ahead and get some sleep. I'm going to practice with the ring." He shrugged. He would practice on his own when no one was around. He knew he could figure it out, but he didn't want to be embarrassed if he messed up. He walked into the bedroom, sat on the bed. He saw the remote next to the TV and could see the power button. He closed his eyes, took a breath. He pictured the remote, the texture of the buttons. He focused on the power button and imagined he pressed it. A second later, he heard a clicking noise, a low hum. He opened his eyes to see the TV was on. Easy peasy, he said. He propped the pillow under his back and zoned out, watching an infomercial on gold coins. He drifted off and dreamed. Chapter 24. Decisions. December 24, 2011. Maniwaki, Canada, 9:13 a.m. John Chabot was walking outside his house, and he breathed in the winter air. It was cold and fresh, and he felt alive. He walked to his truck and started scraping off the ice that was on his windshield. He didn't mind it. His breath puffed little clouds as he worked the glass. He had the day off and wanted to get some ice fishing in. There was a spot his father had showed him, and it was always a good bet. The windows cleared of ice. He jumped in, and he started the truck. It roared a loud roar and lurched forward as if it were excited to get going. He didn't know why, but he felt as though he were being watched. Glancing in his rearview mirror, he didn't see anyone, and after a few anxious moments, he relaxed. He arrived at the large stone, which was his marker, and parked the truck. Getting out, he gathered his gear from the back and started walking. The ground was smooth. There were no footprints in the snow, which was a good sign. Tourists had been getting closer and closer to his spot each year, and he knew it was only a matter of time before his favorite hole was taken over. Even though the land belonged to his people, the ᶠᶸᶜᵏ, they didn't mind the tourists. In fact, the increase in tourism allowed the Anishinaabe to stay and work maintaining their cultural heritage. The tribal ways were still acknowledged, but the fact remains that many of the ᶠᶸᶜᵏ held regular jobs and their kids were in regular schools. It was a real effort getting the children to maintain a working knowledge of their culture. Each step he took crunched in the ground, and he pushed on with excitement growing within him. He always loved fishing the spot. It was more than just a good yielding fishing hole. It had a history to it. His grandfather showed it to his father, and he in turn shared it with him. There was a large rock nearby that his father told him was special. The rock was the first place he had heard the story of the 7 fires. John approached the rock and smiled as he recalled memories of him and his father fishing and talking. Most of the time the conversation was light and fun. Occasionally, though, his father would speak of the 7 prophets and the history of his tribe. He leaned his gear against the rock and stood there listening. The air was still, and he could hear his own breathing. He took out his ice chisel and started working a hole in the ice. When it was large enough, he retrieved his ice saw and worked it into the size he wanted. He returned to the great rock to put the gear away. He wouldn't need any more, and when he was about to bring the remainder of his gear to the hole, when he heard a sound that made him pause. Sound of dripping. Drip, drip, drip. It was faint but clear. He worked his way around the rock until he was behind it, and he saw a sight that made him pause. There was a small hole, and it had a small groove. A white liquid was coming from the hole, and it dripped down to a large bowl-shaped depression on the rock. John wondered what the liquid was. It was clean and smooth. It had a pleasant, subtle scent to it. He couldn't quite describe. He marveled at the fact that it wasn't frozen. How strange. He placed his finger into the shallow pool, smelled the liquid on his fingers. It was cool to the touch, but not as cold as it should be. It had a very strong smell that reminded him of vanilla and mocha. His stomach grumbled, and he realized he was hungry. He didn't know what the strange liquid was, but it didn't seem to be dangerous. And as far as he could tell, and his gut instinct told him, it was okay. He shrugged and tasted it. His eyes widened and he smiled. It tasted better than he thought it would. He cupped his hands in the liquid and sipped it. As he swallowed, he felt warmer, and his hunger was gone. What the? He squatted down and examined the liquid closer. His heart was beating. This wasn't normal. This was something else. His mind started reeling. He grabbed a canteen and dumped it out. When it was empty, he filled it with the liquid. He was filled with a sense of urgency, and he knew he had to speak with the tribe elder as soon as possible about the strange liquid. He quickly gathered his gear, headed back to his truck. Unseen by John, ᶠᶸᶜᵏ was crouched on top of the rock and watched silently with extreme interest as he started to drive off. John drove back into the center of town and saw Chief Gilbert Tallbrother. Tallbrother walked with purpose and pride, and his shoulder-length hair gently swayed as he moved. He wore glasses that glinted in the early morning light. He had deep lines around his mouth and none around the brow, signifying a man who had balance in his life. John respected the elder greatly and knew if anyone could understand what the mysterious liquid was, it would be him. "Excuse me," John said as he quickly approached tall brother. "John, what is it?" "Sorry to bother you. I came across something I think you should see." Tall brother nodded and motioned for John to follow him. They entered a small building and sat in an old, weathered, round table. John explained how he had come about the liquid. He handed the canteen to Tall brother and waited. Tall brother opened the canteen and smelled it. To him, it smelled like warm syrup and butter. "You said this smelled like vanilla and mocha." John nodded, and the chief got up and retrieved a small glass. He poured the liquid into it and examined it. It looked like milk to him, and yet it smelled nothing like it. He was hungry and decided he would test the liquid. He took a small sip, and he felt the warmth John had described, and the flavor was amazing. He sipped a little more, and his hunger vanished, just as John had said. "Please try this again." The chief grabbed another glass, poured a small amount into it as well. John smelled it, still smelled like vanilla mocha. He sipped and smiled. "It's warmer now. Tastes good, yeah?" The chief nodded. He walked to the coffee pot, which was nearby, and grabbed a third glass, poured coffee into it. He then poured the milky liquid from his glass to the coffee and watched in amazement as the coffee shifted color. And looked like the milk. "Did you see that?" John asked. The chief nodded. "John, when I drank the liquid, it tasted and smelled like syrup and butter to me. To you, it tasted and smelled like vanilla and mocha. Why the difference? And now it changes the coffee." Michael Grayson entered the building and walked towards the two men. "What you guys doing?" Tall brother smiled. "We're guessing the flavor of this drink. Would you care to try?" Michael shrugged. "Sure, why not?" Tall brother grabbed another glass and poured a small amount of liquid in, and waited as Michael sipped it. "Damn, that's good. Tastes like a mixture of vodka and strawberries. I love it. What's it called?" Tall brother and John looked at each other. "It's a recipe we're working on," said John quickly. "Well, when you guys put it out, let me know, because I'll buy it." Michael turned and walked out the building whistling. "John, how do you feel?" "I feel great. I was tired earlier, but now I feel really energetic and excited." Tall brother nodded. "I also feel it. I don't think this is anything man-made. We all seem to taste something different in the liquid. I wonder if this has anything to do with the Seven Fires prophecy. Is this a test? Could you imagine if someone were to sell this? A liquid that tastes good, whoever drinks it?" John hadn't even thought about selling it. He was more concerned with what it was. They tested the liquid in the coffee glass, and it was the same as the canteen's liquid. Tall brother smiled. "This is a good thing, John. We should have this tested by those closest to us. See if they can determine what it is. Once we know for sure, we can get others involved. Something tells me that this liquid is much more than an accident. I'll need to take some of this liquid for testing, and then I want you to put the rest in a safe place." John nodded. "Where was the spring at again?" "The great rock where we fished a few winters ago." Tall brother smiled and nodded. He knew the exact spot. "Did you see any tourists there?" John shook his head. "No, I didn't see anyone out there." Tall brother nodded. He needed time to test the liquid and talk with the other elders as the next step. If this was indeed part of the prophecy, he wanted to make sure the correct action was taken. Tall brother gathered small samples of the liquid, and when he was done, he thanked John, and he left the building. John sat there for a while and had a profound sense that change was coming. ᶠᶸᶜᵏ watched from outside, and anticipation filled him. Chapter 25, Christmas Miracles, December 25th, 2011, Don Martin, Mexico, 2:14 p.m. Rosh Hashanah has done as ᶠᶸᶜᵏ had asked and changed its location to Don Martin. It wasn't a bad location to monitor the mirrors from. The humans were celebrating Christmas, and many were at neighboring churches. Rosh Hashanah marveled at the religious devotion in which the humans in Don Martin had. He wondered what was supposed to happen in the town of Don Martin. Why had ᶠᶸᶜᵏ instructed him to come to this location? The area was arid and warm. The landscape was bleached and barren. Cactuses and pelicans seemed to dominate the area. The town had once flourished as a fishing haven before the enormous dam was opened, sending the town's livelihood to the Rio Grande. To say the residents were poor and barely making it was an understatement. The few remainder fishermen ate what they caught and had little extra to even think about selling. The Mexican government had abandoned them, and they were bitter. The tension was running high, and Reshnaga saw many deeply damaged auras. There were some that stood out as exceptional, and they were marked. It didn't take more than an hour to examine the entire town. In a dry patch of what used to be a moderate-sized lake was a shallow depression. A small child named Enrique was playing there with his little sister Anna. Enrique had a stick, and was pretending to be a warrior with it, while his sister giggled and cheered him on. He stepped forward near the center of the depression, and his foot sank an inch. He stumbled to the ground and cried out. His mother, Maria, heard him and hurried to his side. She was sitting down, staring at the depression, which had started to fill up with a milky white liquid. "Are you all right?" his mother asked him. He nodded. Maria noticed he had stopped crying, and Anna was quiet. She followed her son's gaze and noticed the milky liquid. "Lord in heaven," she said as she carried Enrique back to the shoreline. Anna followed her mother. "Javier," called out Maria. Her husband, Javier, was tending his nets and patching a few broken lines. He turned to face her and walked calmly to her. "What is it?" She pointed to the depression, which had filled up and created a small white pond. Javier stared at it and scratched his stubby chin. He had lived in Don Martin his whole life and was a third-generation angler. He had never seen anything nor heard anything that looked like the white pond. He walked towards it, and a faint smell of apples filled the air around him. He knelt, examined the liquid. He cautiously put one finger in, and the liquid was icy cool to the touch. He smelled his finger, and it smelled strongly of apples. He tasted it, was amazed at how wonderful the flavor was. He smiled. "Get something for us to collect this." "Is it safe?" He shrugged. "Tastes good. I feel fine. I feel great." Indeed he did. He suddenly felt more energy and somehow knew the liquid was safe. He nodded suddenly. "Yes, it's fine. Hurry. I want to get as much as possible. Soon there will be others here. We need to get as much home as possible now." His wife ran off, and his son and daughter cautiously approached. "Is it okay? You thirsty?" "It's okay. You thirsty?" They nodded. He gathered up some of his hands, and they tried the liquid. "Peppermint," said his daughter. "Milk and cookies," cried his son. Both kids looked at each other and then back at their father. He reached in and took a deep drink, and it still tasted like apples with a touch of vanilla ice cream. "So it doesn't taste like apples to you?" he asked his children, who both shook their heads. Maria was back in 5 minutes. The white liquid had filled up a large section. Javier was now standing in shin deep. She had brought several bottles and buckets with her in a small wagon. They worked quickly, and as they were finishing, a couple walked up and noticed them. "Hey, Javier, what is that?" asked the old man, who Javier recognized as Niels Lopez. "I do not know, but if I were you, I'd get as much of it as possible. It's amazing." Neil could detect a sense of urgency in Javier's tone, and he motioned for his wife to follow him, and they quickly headed home to get containers. Within 2 hours, the whole town had learned of this miraculous liquid, and word of it reached Reshnaga. Quickly went to observe. When he arrived, people were all around the edge, filling all sorts of containers, and others waited patiently. No matter how much the people walked away with, the small pond kept filling up. Reshnaga watched and smiled as he saw people helping each other. He monitored their thoughts, and was amazed that each person had distinctly different experiences with the liquid, and it seemed to have healing properties of a sort. Many felt it was a Christmas miracle, and as the evening approached, prayers were heard as the entire town converged on the location, give their thanks to marvel of the liquid. Reshnaga understood why Kuthanaga wanted him there, as he saw small thoughts of monetary gain started to filter through several of the people who were in a large crowd. He couldn't blame them, as they were starving for the most part, and were barely surviving. He wondered how the miracle was going to play out. He found a remote spot, closed his eyes. A brief moment passed, and he could feel Kuthanaga. "Yes, Reshnaga, I see what you have set in motion here. It will be interesting to see what the humans do with the liquid. What other properties does it possess?" "It can self-replicate in any liquid it comes in contact with." "Really?" "Yes." "What would happen if it were to be dumped into a river with fish or one of the oceans?" "It would depend on the size. It would replicate roughly 1,000 times its volume before dissolving into the large liquid. As far as life, it would act normal to them, with the only adverse effect being opacity. The opacity would add to normal water. Even that would pass after some time, as the physical contact with the creature would change its composition based off the desire and need." "You mean it can change?" "Yes. It's really amazing. I learned of it after we arrived here from my father. It took me a long time to actually locate it and get a large enough sample. How are the people reacting to it?" "They are treating it like a religious miracle. They are all sharing it for now. I am sensing some have other ideas for it." "Perfect. It is going as I hoped." "Are there other locations?" "Yes. America and Canada. Canadian location has already showed. I am here watching it unfold. I am waiting to hear from Zanari on the other. So you'd like me to maintain my position here? Yes, as you say. Thank you. Kuthanaga faded from his mind, and he headed back to observe the humans. Alright, that's 26. So that ends this one now. Yeah, that first chapter, man, that shit started off dark as fuck, didn't it? I forgot about that. That fucking Richard's a fucking asshole, ain't he? But anyway, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see Tim and Joy experimenting with the rings. So it's going to start picking up pretty fucking heavily moving forward. So the next few chapters, things start to get really fucking gonzo. So stay tuned. It's gonna start to get real fucking fun. All right, guys. As usual, I appreciate the fuck out of you. That's it for now. If you like it. Please subscribe. Tell all your friends far and wide. Until next time, please be good to each other.